Hello, my friends. Welcome to another exciting episode of Me and My Health Up with your host, Anthony Harcher, a healthy man according to my kids, aka a clinical nutritionist and lifestyle medicine specialist. The purpose of this podcast is to enhance and enlighten your well-being. And today we'll be chatting with a resilience expert, Heidi Dening, on resilience, burnout prevention, and peak performance. Heidi Dening believes that education changes lives, and when combining the insights she has learned from surviving a paralyzing illness, a gunpoint kidnapping, a life-threatening tsunami, and petrol bombs, what else? With her evidence-based education, she has a unique ability to empower leaders and their teams to find the courage during adversities to work at their fullest potential. And don't we all need this now, given what we're going through and still in at the moment with this pandemic? She has dedicated her career to inspiring thousands of people across the globe with resilience, self-leadership, and well-being programs, from small children on remote Pacific islands to C-suite executives in billion-dollar companies. She has recently been named Best International Keynote Speaker in the Asia Pacific region at the Influential Businesswoman Awards, is also the best-selling author and often appears in media as a resilience expert. So here we are, blessed to have the best international keynote speaker, Heidi Dening. How are you today?
I'm great, Anthony. How are you today?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you putting aside some time in your busy schedule to help, empower the listeners on how they can be more resilient during these times. And that intro just blew me out of the water in terms of what you've been through. And I was wondering, out of all those events that you've experienced, has there been a specific event that's really shaped who you are today?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think they have all shaped me, and I think for all of us, no matter what challenges we've been through and or are going through, whether they're the big ones or the small ones, whether they're personal ones or professional ones, every single one of them actually does shape us. And I think the whole idea is that the best idea is, no matter what intensity they are, no matter what length they are, what kind of impact they have for a short term or long term on our life, that we are actually able to learn something from them. And when we can learn something from them and apply them to our next challenges, which of course we can't control and I think we've seen that over the last 12 months more than ever before, that we don't have control over everything. But if we can learn something from what has gone on in our lives, so we can adapt it and apply it to something new that comes into our world, then I suppose that's in my kind of framework of resilience. But to answer your question, I would say that no doubt waking up in a burning building after petrol bombs had been thrown with the intention to burn me and my team alive would certainly have shaped me with what I'm doing now, mostly. And the reason for this is that after that incident, I suffered terribly with post-traumatic stress disorder, crippling insomnia, physical pain from the injuries that had occurred on that night, and emotional pain that had occurred because of the event and what it meant for my life going forward, which was very much changed. And, I hit rock bottom after that, rock bottom. And there were days, weeks, months where I actually didn't know whether I would be able to crawl myself out of it. And there were times when I didn't want to climb myself out of it. And yeah, so I think certainly that incident has shaped me mostly because of that. But I suppose, going back to what I firstly said, what it's done is allowed me, I never would think there would anything positive could come out of such an event, but in fact there has. And it has allowed me to create various models and formulas of how to get off rock bottom, and certainly it shaped a formula which I call the resilience bucket formula, which I hope we get a chance to chat with about a little bit within this podcast. But I've been able to share that with thousands of leaders and teams across the globe since that event, but especially in the last 12 months when we found so many people, hundreds, thousands, millions of people going through such uncertain and changing times that are causing them deep levels of stress and challenge, and they're really struggling. And this particular formula is so easy peasy for one. It's really simple to apply, and it can be very specific to everybody's life. And that's what's so good about it, that it's not like the 10 resilience building hacks that you can search for on Google. It's that is very specific of what you have to do, and you have to do all of them. It's not like that at all. So I hope we'll get probably a chance to have a chat about that. But I suppose obviously that was used and created after a very big traumatic, violent event. But I was actually able to personally have to use it again last year. I mean, March 2020, as a speaker and someone who goes into organizations to do training and development, I lost 90% of my bookings for 2020 within a 10-day period. And I found myself pretty low. I wouldn't say as low as I was after that violent crime, but last year I was pretty low after that happened. But I knew I had a formula that I had used before, that I have been teaching. I get a lot of emails all the time, a lot of messages to say how simply they've been able to put it into their lives because it's so practical. So it's like, well, Heidi, start, practicing what you preach again and really being very habitual with putting it in place. And I did. And so for someone who went from zero work pretty much in March to the end of that year, winning that big award that got me Best International Keynote Speaker in Asia Pacific. I mean, when I think of it like that, it's crazy. So yes, out of really yucky, tricky, tough times, we can extract some goodness. We've often got to do a lot with the way we see it and our mindset around it, but there is definite possibility for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard the saying, out of adversity can come greatness. And certainly, you experienced that last year. And I'm really excited to hear about this resilience bucket formula because, you've tempted me, and I'm sure the listeners at this point just want to hear it. So please share it with us.
Well, it's a very simple formula, and I'd be happy, actually, Anthony, to send the visual for this that you can share within the show notes and the resources. But there are 5 components to it. And the first component is that every day, with the goal of 10 minutes, but it might not start at 10 minutes, is to be still. Just be still. Now, that might mean that the alarm goes off a few minutes before it should, and you just lie in your bed and do some belly breathing. It might mean that you at lunchtime can just go outside and sit in nature and just hear the birds. Or it might mean the only way that you can have some stillness is just to swing your chair around from your computer and shut your eyes, turn off your devices and do it that way. But I think often when people are told that they've got to meditate and do this, that, and the other, they feel like they've got to have this kind of perfect scenario where they're sitting somewhere gorgeous with candles going and incense burning and they're cross-legged. But it's not about that. We just want to give our brain an opportunity to refresh itself because we're so busy all day long that giving it the opportunity to just be still. And I think the language is really important. And what I know for myself as someone who's tried to be a meditator for a long time, I don't feel that's the right word for a lot of people. And starting with being still for up to 10 minutes a day can make a world of difference. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to find joy. Find joy. COVID has sucked the living life out of the joy for many people. And the thing is, joy is so different for all of us. Joy for one person might be to exercise. Joy for another is to throw a frisbee down the park with the kids. Joy for somebody else is to volunteer at their local animal shelter, or have a massage, or dance, crank up the music in the lounge room and just get your groove on. Joy comes in many ways. So, if you can have, we want people to have joy every day, of course, but to schedule in 1 hour of joy every week. Now, is that because you're playing in a tennis team? So that's your scheduled joy. So I'm defining it different with, we all want to be happy every day somehow, some way, but some scheduled joy for 1 hour a week is something that fills you up and makes you feel good and puts a smile on your face. That's number 2. Number 3 is to chill out once a month, to diarise it as the chill out day. Now, we would love that to be a whole day, but not everybody can do that. They've got responsibilities with their families, their friends, with their clubs that they're in, whatever that might be. But I'm sure if you just scheduled in a couple of hours, for example, to sleep in, stay in your gym jam, slouch on the couch, read a good book, have a binge fest on Netflix, whatever that might be. I've had probably the busiest month of my career this particular month. And on the weekend, I didn't take 1 day, I took 2 days. I watched season 5 and season 6 of Suits on the couch over the weekend, because I so desperately needed to chill out if I was going to be able to show up this week. But we all need chill out time. That's definitely number 3. Number 4 is to live life. Live life, gosh. With people, especially for people who are used to traveling quite a bit, finding a new way to live life has been tough for them because, as we often know, it often is in the planning of going away that we get a lot of joy from the planning, actually going on, finding where we're going to stay, where we're going to get a coffee. Is there a fancy pants restaurant that we're going to go to? So often it is in the planning, and a lot of the time, the last 12 months, obviously, that planning has been taken away. So what I'm saying to people now is, still we've got Easter coming up, and I'm telling everyone, and actually it's I've got some bit of media on this, on don't Marie Kondo your house over Easter. Like, do not start cleaning out cupboards at Easter time. No, that's not to be done. What we want is for people to live life. Now, that might be to have a staycation in the location they're in, and just have a picnic in the park, or go to a gallery, see a show, see some friends, drink some wine, whatever that might be. Or, perhaps to go to a regional area that you can start planning for and looking up those things. So I think that the joy of, you're nearly ticking 2 boxes. The joy of living life is something that really helps us to build our resilience, because it gives us something to look forward to amongst what for many may feel is a very, very tough time. And the 5th one, and the one that is actually most important, it's actually one an additional one that I've added in the last 12 months, because I've seen how important it is. And that is to connect more. If you can't do any of those first 4, just do this one. Connect with people who put a smile on your face, bring some warmth to your heart. We don't need huge amounts of people in our life. It's that whole thing of quality over quantity. And I think if we can connect with the people in our world that actually really do mean something to us, and can be there in when times are good, but also when times are wobbly, that can make such a difference to us showing up day after day after day when things do seem tough. So they are the 5: be still, find joy, chill out, live life, connect more. And I suppose why this formula has worked so well is that everyone can define it in whatever way they need to, and apply it to their own life, depending on their responsibilities.
It's a wonderful formula, and it brought a smile to my face, and I can see it working for so many people. It's so easy to do, doesn't cost you anything. You just invest a bit of time, which is important, and away you go, and you really build that more resilience nature within you.
Yeah.
And I just, this term resilience has often come up during this pandemic,
Mm.
and hence why you're in such huge demand,
Mhm.
because we all need support around this and to be more resilient. And I'm just thinking, is it a buzzword of this modern age?
Mm.
Because I don't know if previous generations had such focus on it, and whether they were more resilient. But if I look at my parents, they certainly have a lot of resilience. And, I'm not sure whether it was associated with them going through some real adverse events, such as the wars and,
Yeah.
the Cold War with Russia, and, the threat of nuclear warfare. And
Yeah.
they had this. And I'm just thinking and if you look at beyond that sort of period, we've had some uh, smaller wars, more civil wars, but nothing at that sort of worldly scale other than this pandemic. And uh, I'm just thinking, is there something that, the more adversity we come up against, we do as humans find ways through it, by working. And as you mentioned, that fifth point, that real connection, like we're in this together. And, that's a hashtag that's very
Yeah.
popular, in this together, like it's, we're working through it together. What's your thoughts on this?
Look, I think certainly uh, with the older generations, I mean, I think resilience certainly is something they have definitely had, but you are so right. It has become a buzzword. And I think, unfortunately, in the last 12 months, the word has been diluted because of its overuse. And what worries me most about the use of that word is that it seems that we keep defining, I'm a resilient person because I have the ability to bounce back to the way I was before. You've got a resilient business or organization because you've been able to bounce back from this adversity of COVID. But I don't believe that resilience should be measured on our ability to bounce back for two reasons. Firstly, I believe that something fundamentally changes within us at a cellular level when we go through adversity, and we're not actually the same person that we were before that. So bouncing back to that person is not really relevant. Secondly, I don't think, especially in these times, we don't want to bounce back. What we want to do is be able to learn something from this really challenging period in history, be able to apply it to our personal lives, but also to our professional lives, or to the businesses that we have, or the organizations that we run, or the remote teams that we're managing, and be able to bounce forward, to progress, to be able to move through to something that is our new world that unfortunately none of us can control. This is the way it is. And I know for many, they're craving that safety of the old world that was, but we don't have choice in this. This is out of our control. The world has changed. So what have we learned from it? How can we adapt it to apply for our lives or our businesses or our organizations or our teams, so we can bounce forward into what could possibly be a bright world filled with very different opportunities? So I think for that, that's what I really wanted to say, especially regarding the fact that resilience, to me, has been misdefined. And so that's the first thing. Secondly, regarding the older generations or the generations before us, in fact, I had a TV appearance on Weekend Today on that exact thing. We did a segment on, what can we learn about resilience from the generations before us, because, they have gone through things that none of us in this world, I'm older than you, but down, that we can learn from and apply. And I interviewed this gorgeous lady, Maria, and her family fled Poland, with one suitcase. They ended up in Australia, the 5 of them in Australia, with one suitcase between them all. They had come from a very well-to-do family, and they, had a lot of upstandingness within their community, yet they came here with nothing. And what's so interesting, I was interviewing her, well, it was actually when I wasn't, someone interviewed her because no one could, get to each other at that time. It was during lockdown. She said to me, and this is so gorgeous, she said to me, if Hitler didn't get me, COVID will not. It's like, I mean, what an approach to life. Like, and she meant it like this. If I escaped him, there's no way this thing's going to get me down. And of course, she's in her 80s. She's like in the most vulnerable portion of our society, yet she just has that mentality because she's gone through something really massive beforehand. And that is what our challenges do, right? They show us who we can be. They show us that we have capacity. When we find the courage to tap into our capacity, then not only can we see who we can become, but when we can have the courage to learn something from it. So when that next curveball or cannonball gets thrown at us, we do know that we do have the confidence and the capability to keep moving forward.
You're right. It really steps us out of our comfort zone because we can, when everything's going well for us, we can sit comfortably within our comfort zone. But when things change, like these environment, around us that we can't control, we have to adapt, and we're forced to change something within us in order to adapt. And you're absolutely right. It stretches us from our comfort zone. And as you said, a lot comes from that stretching. It stretches organizations to think creative again.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And if you don't have creativity right now, you don't survive, right? We're adapting so quick.
Absolutely. And you saw businesses shuffling so quickly early on because they were forced to, and they had to rethink their business models.
Absolutely.
And what the future, well, no one knows what the future is, but they had to adjust for that point in time. And a lot of businesses have adjusted for the better. So, look at healthcare, like telehealth wasn't heard of before COVID. And look how convenient telehealth is.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there's just so many wonderful things that have come out of it. I mean, not to say that there's been some horrific things, but when we're thinking about what we can find from that challenge that could make our life a little bit better, that we feel that we've been able to grow somehow, some way. I think that's just that mindset that we have on, it's not all bad. It's not all, oh my gosh, it's ruined my life. Instead, it's like, well, yeah, it's really caused a lot of problems. And certainly those who've lost people, I'm not talking about that, by the way, at all. Completely different conversation. But if we can learn something from the challenging time that we can adapt and make our worlds better, that's a great thing that's come out of it.
Because your fifth point around connection, these sort of events just bind us and unite us, and we're all against the virus, where we put our differences aside and we align and unite and we go forward. And you look at the pharmaceutical companies, how they stop competing and we've got to do the best for humanity here, and we're going to work together, we're going to share information, and we're going to collaborate. And it's these sort of these events that really force this connection and working together. And even I find, as much as passing of a loved one is really tough, it does unite the rest of the family or the rest of the friends around to support one another. So there's always that, even with the loss, there's always that reunion that's created for those that are still present. So I can certainly see how all these really tough events that you've faced throughout your life have really shaped you to be the expert on resilience, and you make a living from it now, right? It's
it's still a work in progress, let me say. It doesn't mean to say that I do not struggle at times, big time, and because life can be tough, and you get tough days, you get tough weeks, tough months, tough years. And often I think we go through this kind of real rhythm of, sometimes it just feels like the universe is just throwing things left, right, and center at you, and you're its punching bag. It's going down to that, kind of that, for one, trusting that somehow, some way there'll be something bright eventually, but finding that courage to keep going, and finding that courage to learn something from what's gone on, to make your own, that kind of, what have I got some control over? And I've only got control over a certain amount of things. So as long as I am doing what I can to influence that, that's all I can do. That's all I can do. Yeah.
So true. And those five key, that formula of the five steps to resilience is certainly within everyone's control. There's
It
nothing
is.
in that
Yeah.
you could say, I don't have that within my capability. It's
Yeah.
it's within you, and it's
It
you
is.
just making the decision
Correct.
to do it. Yeah, which
Yeah.
I love that about your formula.
Mm.
It's so doable. Just in terms of shifting gears a bit here, the burnout prevention side of what you do,
Yes.
is that very much aligned to those five principles, or is there some additional things around burnout prevention? Because, like COVID's really, made us, force this change, and we've had to scurry and work, and a lot of people worked so much harder during COVID,
Yeah.
to transition through this tough period.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine there's people at this point that are feeling, a year on from when it happened, that are feeling quite burnt out.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, is there anything more to share around the burnout prevention you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, look, I think it's really important to distinguish the two, because I think building resilience is something that we do have control of. We can do that ourselves. There is no doubt. And when we do those things habitually, and can I say that doing them when you're rock bottom is very, very hard. So putting those things in place, those 5 points in place when you are not at rock bottom, it makes life a lot easier. Even if bottom's here and you're just, a smidge over the top of it, just start something, because that will just move that smidge a little bit up, a little bit up, a little bit up, which then helps a lot. But when you've hit the rock bottom, it's very hard to drag yourself out to do anything positive for yourself or others. Burnout prevention, though, there's two parts of it. Yes, we can do things ourselves to ensure that we don't burn out. And that's a lot about the recognition of it, the warning signs that our body and brain do send to us. And we all have different warning signs, and they are different for everyone. It is something that I always get the teams that I'm working with to map out. And is it because you get a big cold sore? Is that your body going, warning, warning, warning? Or is it this, sleep is my big issue. It always has been. That's, I know when I'm not sleeping that I need to kind of intervene on myself. Or perhaps it is because you're not focused. You keep walking into rooms and going, hey, why'd I come in here? And you just not as precise as you would normally be. So we all have these warning signs. I was with a team last week, and one lady, she told me that she did a lot of online shopping when she was getting too stressed and heading for burnout. So the credit card got a hammering, and that was her warning sign, which I thought was great that she recognized that in herself. So firstly, it's about recognizing those warning signs when we personally know that we're on that slippery slope from being a bit stressed out, because stress can be actually quite good for us. It's challenging, helps us meet deadlines. But when we start going down that slippery slope to burnout, we need to intervene. But with burnout, there are a lot of things that are out of our control. So if we are working within an organization who doesn't resource us properly, has a toxic work culture, doesn't have realistic deadlines, a lot of all of those things are often out of our control when we are within an organization or a business. So that can have a real impact on whether we're going to burn out or not. Poor behavior by others is often, we have control. Yes, we can walk away, but it shouldn't be something that we need to be resilient enough to overcome the poor behavior by others. So I think I'm so glad you asked it, because there is that real fine line between, saying to somebody, you've got to be resilient enough to deal with all of that. Often when I've been brought into an organization by management to say, look, can you do some resilient work with our staff so they're more resilient? It's like, well, what are you doing to them that they need to be more resilient? Like, really? Because that is often the case. It's what the organizational structure and their policies and their programs, or lack of them, is doing to chip away at people's resilience and get them on that slippery slope to burnout. So the way I kind of separate the two is that, yes, we can build our own resilience and we have total control over that. But our burnout, there's a portion of that is out of our control. And I suppose not everybody is in a situation where they get to make choice about their employment for whatever reason. They have to, unfortunately, stay there for a short while or a long while. But obviously, if it's having a huge impact on your physical and mental health, the best case scenario would to find a new organisation, definitely. But I understand that that's not always the case. So that will impact people's ability to prevent burnout or not.
And so, if you listen to the signals and, think, well, yeah, I'm sort of feeling that exhaustion or that rundown, that's when you really step into that formula you have around resilience in terms of, taking time, chilling out, being mindful, finding some joy and, connection.
Yeah, having something to look forward to, living life, just looking forward to something. So whatever's going on in your day, it's like, oh yeah, but at Easter I've got that, or that long weekend we're going there, or I'm going to see that family member, or we're going to do hot air ballooning or whatever it might be. Yeah. So just, I think that looking forward to something so you feel like you're living life, especially when times are tough, can really help you. Mentally.
Yeah, it's that light at the end of the tunnel, isn't there? You can see joy, and you can see, well, I know if I can get through these weeks, I've got this holiday, this hot air ballooning adventure, and I'm just looking forward to that, and I can visualize myself in that balloon. So I can just get through these days and then enjoy myself. Yeah. And in terms of, that element of peak performance that you work with organizations on, is there a distinguishing factor with, between the resilience, the burnout prevention and peak performance? I mean, obviously, if you're preventing burnout, people, are performing better because they're more in that optimal range.
Absolutely.
Is there anything more you'd like to share around peak performance?
Look, I think for people to be able to perform at their fullest potential, and again, that'll be different for everybody, what that means. Firstly, they can't be, if they're in burnout, that will never be able to happen. So, we've got to step it back. Okay, well, if I want to get up here and perform at my fullest potential, then what do I need to do to make sure that can happen? And obviously, there are components of our physical health that have a direct impact on us being able to perform well at work. Not being sleep deprived, is certainly one. When we come to work sleep deprived, then it's very hard to be really focused on fire and spot errors and be creative to adapt to this new world. That just cannot happen. And obviously, with all the work you do, Anthony, with physical health being one of them, we know that there's this direct correlation between being able to be fit and healthy with how we can perform. And I don't really like to use the word getting fit and exercising. I just like to talk about moving more. And if we get people to move more, that helps them to perform better at work. A lot of people have no care for being fit. That's not one of their goals at all. They might want to be masters at a musical instrument or a sport that doesn't require peak fitness or whatever that may be. So I really try to avoid using that kind of language because it's not about being fit. It's about moving more. That helps our performance. And of course, our mental health makes a huge difference, because if we are feeling anxious, if we getting teary over things that we wouldn't normally, or cranky. This is a sure sign. Obviously, we're heading towards that burnout, and we just cannot perform well when our mental health is not at a reasonable level. So yes, there is a big overlap of how it all works, but there is no way any of us can perform at our best if we are not resilient enough to deal with what's going on in the world, the changes, the uncertainty, or if we've hit rock bottom and we've gone to burnout.
Yeah, and I can see the links because, if you're talking about the mental health side of thing, around peak performance, if people apply that formula, the resilience bucket formula, those 5 steps, then their mental health is doing well. Yeah, because that's all very supportive of mental health. And then I'm thinking within those 5 key steps is also an element of movement. Do the things you enjoy, and as you said, it could be dancing. It could be going out on the weekend with a friend, riding the bike, or going for a swim, or so
walking the dog.
Yes.
Movement can come in so many ways, and just find what's right for you that does bring you joy to do it. We know that movement helps not just our physical health, but our mental health. It's definitely a crucial component.
And I like how you term it movement, because as you said, if you talk about fitness, people, well, they may not pursue that goal, so therefore it's not of interest, and you lose them. You can't engage them.
That's right.
If you're talking about moving, it's just moving the body. It's just getting up, walking around, going for a walk around the block, going for a walk with someone, doing a walk and talk. And it's not as daunting, and it's simple. And I think that's what I like about your formula. It's very simple, nothing daunting about it. And it's all about, it's all tailored to the individual. It's their preferences, what they like, their joys, how they want to live their life.
Definitely. Yeah. And, as you're talking, so another thing I could share with your listeners, Anthony, is for me to understand, before people do that formula and make the change, so that we do have behavior change, that we do have physical health change, mental health change, resilience is improved. We need to know where we're at right now. It's okay. We kind of make these summations. Oh yeah, I'm doing okay, or are you? I mean, how do we know? Because especially these last 12 months, the world has impacted us all in ways that we're not even sure of. And I know for myself, it took a little while to understand the true impact that it was having on me. And, first there was that immediate, oh my gosh, I've lost everything feeling. And then there was the full, oh my gosh, I've got to adapt everything. By the end of the year, I mean, I'd worked so hard. I'd been ignoring the warning signs myself a bit. I didn't know where I was at. It was just like busy, busy, busy. And I think we can get so lost in busy, we don't even realize that, in fact, we are on that spiral towards burnout, and we can be closer than we think we are. And I do have it takes about 3 minutes, an online scorecard that people can do to get their resilience. I call it the resilience KPI. Where's it? It's their starting point right now. Then we put those 5 components in from the formula, and we budge the score. So I can certainly share that. People would like to have a check-in to see what their resilience KPI is now, and perhaps set a goal for improving that over, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing that, Heidi. And I'll incorporate it into the show notes so people can go to that direct link to test where they're at and what they need to do in order to improve their score. I really like it. It's a fantastic tool to have, because, as you said, it can be, when you can have the blinkers on when you're really just going for it, right? And you're missing all the warning signs, and people can recognize it around you, but you just got the blinkers on. And I like
even those of us who are talking about this every day, right, Anthony? We can ignore them too, because that's too hard to deal with right now. I'm too busy to deal with that. I've certainly been guilty of that.
It's so true, particularly when you're in the space of giving and serving others, and you seek joy, or your joy comes from when you see others benefit from your education, your empowerment, and you can see the changes happening in their lives as a result of you having an influence. And I think that, because we're so inspired to do that with others, that it continues to drive us, and we forget about ourselves. You're absolutely
so true.
Yeah. So just how can listeners, viewers best connect with you?
Well, they can go to heididening.com. That's Dening with one N. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, so that's certainly a place that I would love people to join in conversations with me or tag me in something they believe that would be of interest to me. I love seeing what other people are doing and are saying and joining in conversations like that. That is definitely where I spend most of my time. So that would be terrific. I have a another thing that people can tap into, which is a free thing, which is every Wednesday fortnight I have what I call the Wine and Wisdom Show. It's a Facebook Live show, and it's where I interview great humans from across the globe who've risen above adversities and dug deep to find courage to keep moving forward and build, be resilient. And we all share a glass of wine together, me and the interviewee and all of those who are watching, and as my guest shares the wisdom with the world. So that is a great place. And tomorrow night we've got a great one with do good to be good, and we have topics like that are very relevant to people who would probably listen to your podcast, I'd say, Anthony.
Yeah, I'll incorporate the link again in the show notes directly to your Facebook page so that people can go to that and join you for a glass of wine and learn more about resilience. And I was just, when you're talking about that, I thought, oh yeah, we have a mutual connection there, and that's Graham Cowan, and he was a guest on your wine.
Only last month or this month, maybe, I think. Yes.
And he's also been a guest on the podcast. So So the people can see how we're so interconnected.
Yeah, Graham's a remarkable man.
Oh, phenomenal. Yeah. So I just really want to thank you, Heidi, for you putting aside your time in your busy schedule to impart this wisdom, knowledge, this love for what you do with our listeners. So I truly thank you, with the bottom of my heart. And I'm sure the listeners will get so much value out of this podcast and connecting with you on all these other forums, such as LinkedIn, your Facebook page, having a wine with you.
Yeah.
So, so thank you so much, Heidi. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And we can all tick off joy together when we're having a wine together, right?
Absolutely. It's joy. Absolutely. And it's
without doubt.
Living life as well.
Yes, so. Yeah, and chilling out as well. Like we can
exactly.
so many. and connecting more. So there we go. I didn't realize that. I'll have to say that on my show that we ticked 4 out of the 5.
Absolutely, totally. And listeners, if you love the episode, please like and share it with others that could also benefit. Leave a review, because that also helps others connect with this great information that Heidi's shared with us today. So thank you so much. And until next time, take care, be healthy, and see you next episode. Thank you.
See you, everybody.